Hello, I am Big Joe the Storyteller, and welcome to the Big Joe November Show. This is going to be a show with stories all about the month of November, because a lot of exciting things happen in November. We have a change of time. We have ourselves getting ready for winter, and best of all, we have Thanksgiving with lots of food. So we're going to tell you all stories about this wonderful month. Our very first story is a story about the change in time. It's a story called One Day, One Night, and I'll tell it to you. Now, a long time ago, things were different than they are today. Today, we have a wonderful day, and then there's night, and then there's day, and then there's night. But a long time ago, things were very different. A long time ago, the sun went up and down whenever it felt like it. Sometimes there would be 10 days and just 2 nights. Sometimes there'd be 20 days and 3 nights. Sometimes there'd be 50 days and only 4 nights. But sometimes it was the other way around. Sometimes there'd be 50 nights and only 2 days. Sometimes there'd be 100 nights and just 3 days. Sometimes there'd be almost a whole year of night and only 4 days. And it would go up and down and back and forth and back and forth and up and down and up and down and back and forth whenever it felt like it. The sun would do whatever it wanted. And all the animals were unhappy because some animals like the daylight, like squirrels. Squirrels like to jump from branch to branch to branch to branch to branch. If you try to jump from branch to branch to branch in the middle of the night, when you jump, whoop, you'll bump your head. Ow, it hurt my brain. And some of the animals, they like the nighttime, like wolves and coyotes. They like to hunt when it's nighttime. And if you try to hunt and it's the middle of the day, everybody's going to see you. Ooh, sorry, bye. So they had a council meeting and everybody was complaining. The little animals came out that, hey, what we need is more day. We need much more day. The big animals came out and said, no way, man. What we need is more night. We need lots more night. Yeah. And they were arguing back and forth and back and forth. Well, they decided to send Eagle up to the sun to talk about things. So Eagle flew to the highest point on the mountain and he sat there on the mountaintop and he looked at Sun and he said, Sun, we have a problem. All of the animals are unhappy because nobody knows when you're going up and when you're going down. Well, Sun said, all right, I don't like to see the animals unhappy. So here's what I want you to do. Go down and tell the animals to think of a plan. And whatever plan they come up with, that is what I will do. So Eagle flew down to tell all the animals. And when they heard that, they all went home to think of their plans. They thought, and they thought, and they thought, and they thought. Well, they came out the next day to present their plans. One little animal came out and said, hi, I think what we need is 10 days and 2 nights. Yeah, 10 days and 2 nights. Yeah. Because I think what we need is 50 days and 3 nights. Yeah, 50 days and 3 nights. Okay, I said, hi, I think what we need is 100 days, 2 nights, and a slice of pizza. Who's with me? Nobody. All right, fine. Yeah. Well, the big animal came out and said, I think what we need is 50 nights and 2 days. I think what we need is 100 nights and 4 days. The animal came out and said, I think what we need is 300 nights and 2 days. And they were arguing back and forth, and all of a sudden the ground shook and the trees parted, and out came Bear. And Bear towered above the animals. He was very big and very strong, and Bear came out, and Bear said, 10 years of darkness, 1 day. 10 years of darkness, 1 day. 10 years of darkness, 1 day. Now, a lot of animals, they liked that plan. A lot of animals, they didn't like it at all. And they were arguing back and forth and back and forth. And they were arguing so much that they didn't hear. On the side of the council ring, there was Frog. And Frog was sitting there, and Frog was speaking a plan that no one thought of, but what seemed very fair. Frog sat there, and Frog said, 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. Well, a lot of the animals liked that plan, but a lot of the animals, they liked Bear's plan too, and so nobody knew what to do. Well, they sent Eagle back up to the sun. And when Eagle got there, Eagle said, Sun, we have another problem. Bear's plan and Frog's plan, we have 2 plans, and nobody knows which one to pick. Well, Sun said, all right, here's what we will do. We will have a contest, Bear against Frog. Both animals will speak their plan, and whoever can speak their plan for the longest time without stopping will get their way. Well, Eagle flew down and told all the animals about Sun's contest. And when the animals heard that, Bear heard that, man, Bear started to laugh. Because he knew nobody was going to beat him, especially not a little frog. Well, as for Frog, Frog was going to do his best because that's all you can do. Whether it's school or sports or anything like that, all you can do is do your best. Yep. And Frog was going to do his best. Now, sun came down low on the riverbank the next day. Frog stood on one bank of the river, and Frog sat on the other bank. And Sun repeated his plan. He said, both animals will speak their plan, and whoever can speak their plan for the longest time without stopping will get their way. Well, Bear didn't even wait for Sun to say go. Bear opened his mouth, and Bear said, 10 years of darkness, 1 day. 10 years of darkness, 1 day. 10 years of darkness, 1 day. Well, Frog waited for Sun to say go, and Frog started to speak his plan too. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. But nobody would hear him because Bear was yelling, 10 years of darkness, 1 day. 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 And on it went. Bear and Frog, Frog and Bear, back and forth and back and forth. And after a while, something happened. Bear's throat started to get a little scratchy. His voice started to get a little sore. Because you see, Bear wasn't used to speaking for so long. Because Bear was so big and strong that all he had to do was say things one time and everybody listened to him. But now they had to keep repeating himself over and over and over again. It was very hard on his voice. And Bear was having trouble speaking. Bear said, 10 years of darkness, 1 day. 10 years of darkness, 1 day. 10 years of darkness, 1 day. And then the worst thing happened. Bear opened his mouth and hardly any sound came out at all. 1 day. 10 years of darkness, 1 day. Oh, well, Frog, he was sitting on the other bank of the river. And let me tell you, Frog was just getting warmed up. Because you see, Frog was so small, he was used to repeating himself over and over and over so everybody'd hear him. And so Frog sat there and Frog said, 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. Well, because Bear could no longer speak, Sun declared that Frog was the winner. And Sun went with Frog's plan, which was 1 day followed by 1 night. And that's still the plan that we use to this very day. We have 1 day and 1 night. Well, Frog was so proud of himself that he kept repeating his plan over and over and over again. In fact, frogs still do that to this very day. If you go down to a lake or to a swamp or to a river, you'll hear a frog going, ribbit, 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 ribbit. But if you spoke Frog's language, you know Frog was saying 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. 1 day, 1 night. And that is the end. Well, it is November, and the day and the night, it's going to get shorter. Because we've turned the clocks. We have the equinox, and now the days are going to start getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And by the time we get into winter, it's going to get very dark very early. And we get ready. In this month, in November, we start to get ready for the winter months that are ahead. And our next story is a story about getting ready for winter. It's an Aesop fable, the story of the ant and the grasshopper. And you guys, from right where you're watching me right now, you can help me out with this story, okay? Because in this story, Grasshopper has a song. Now, I'm not usually one to sing songs. I'm not really a song type of storyteller. I'm just a storyteller type of storyteller. I just tell stories. I don't sing. Nobody wants to hear me sing. Trust me, you do not. But in this story, I have a song. Now, this is a song that Grasshopper sings in our story. In the story of the ant and the grasshopper. There's Grasshopper. Hello. Now, I'm going to sing the song a couple of times and we could all sing it together, okay? Grasshopper's song goes like this. Ready? Yep. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Hey! Now you got to put the hey at the end. It makes it kind of jazzy. Makes it jazzy. Are you going to try it again? Yep. All right. We're going to sing it again. Then we're all going to sing it together. Okay. Here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Hey! Again, you got to put the hey at the end. See? Makes it jazzy. Now, our last time, we're all going to sing it together. Okay, get ready. From right where you're watching, you can sing the song. Get your throat ready. Are you ready? Ready? 1, 2, 3. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. Hey! All right, you ready for our story called The Ant and the Grasshopper? Once upon a time, there lived an ant, and there lived a grasshopper. An ant was very smart, and a very hard worker. And Ant knew that even though the weather was warm and everything was nice, he knew that winter was going to come, and he had to get ready. Well, as a grasshopper, Grasshopper didn't like to work at all. He didn't know what was coming next. He didn't care what was coming next. He just loved to play all day. He loved to play, and he would play all the time. Well, one day, late in the summer, Ant started to get ready. He was building himself a house. Well, as a grasshopper, Grasshopper hopped in the grass. Boingy, 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 boingy. He rolled down the hill, roll down the hill, roll down the hill, and he took naps on the tree. Well, Ant went to Grasshopper and said, Grasshopper, Grasshopper, you need to build yourself a house because winter is going to come. And when winter comes, it's going to get very cold and you're going to need a place to stay. Well, Grasshopper looked at Ant, and Grasshopper sang, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. Hey! Well, time went by. And when it did, it got later into the summer and fall started to arrive. And when it did, Ant went through the forest gathering food. He gathered nuts and berries and pieces of food that he could put in jars to save for later. He was working very hard putting all that food together. Well, as for Grasshopper, Grasshopper swam in the pond. Grasshopper swung to the trees. And Grasshopper rolled down the hill. Roll down the hill, roll down the hill. I like rolling down the hill, I know. Well, Ant went to Grasshopper and he said, Grasshopper, Grasshopper, you better gather some food because when winter comes, it's going to be very hard to find some food and you're going to need something to eat. Well, Grasshopper looked at Ant and Grasshopper sang, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. Hey! Well, time went by, and when time went by, it got very late into fall, and Ant got himself ready by making himself some clothes. He made himself a hat and a sweater and some mittens, a lot of mittens because he had a lot of little legs, and little boots too, so he would keep himself nice and warm. Well, as a grasshopper, Grasshopper danced. He did twirls, he did flips, he did all kinds of stuff, but he didn't do much work. And Ant went to Grasshopper, and Ant said, Grasshopper, Grasshopper, you need something to keep you warm because when winter comes, it gets very, very, very cold. You need something to keep you warm. Well, Grasshopper looked at Ant, and Grasshopper sang, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. Hey! Well, time kept going by, and it got late in October. November started to arrive, like it did right here. And when November came, it started to get a little bit colder. So Ant went around the forest gathering wood for his fire. He got twigs and sticks and pieces of wood that he could use in his fireplace. Well, as a grasshopper, Grasshopper ran through the grass. Grasshopper hopped down the road. Boinga, 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 boinga. Grasshopper, no, Grasshopper did not burp. No, Grasshopper did not burp. Grasshopper, burp, stop that, burp, please stop, burp, no burping. There's no burping in the story. This is a very nice story. We need to be professional, no burping. Okay. Burp, please stop. Well, Ant went to Grasshopper and he said, Grasshopper, Grasshopper, winter is coming very soon. You need something, anything to keep you warm. Please get something that'll keep you warm. And Grasshopper looked at Ant, and Grasshopper sang, I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. Hey! Well, time went by, as it always does. It got later into November, and by the end of November, it started to get very, very cold. And Ant went into his house and sat by the fire to keep warm. Well, as a grasshopper, he was dancing and playing and having a good old time, but the weather started to get very cold. Oh, boy. It was getting really, really cold. It was so cold he had to find a place to stay, but he didn't have a house at all. There was a leaf that fell off a tree in the fall, and so he tried to hide under that leaf. But man, it was way cold under there. It was very shaky and very shivery. And then one day, something bad happened. It started to snow. It snowed and it snowed and it snowed, and the snow covered the ground. And it covered the ground so much that Grasshopper couldn't find any food at all. Ooh. He looked around, but he couldn't find anything. And his little belly started to rumble, 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 rumble. And Grasshopper was very hungry and very cold, and he didn't know what to do. And he looked over into Ant's window, and there was Ant sitting by the fire drinking some hot cocoa. Well, very shaky and very shivery, Grasshopper went to Ant's house, and he knocked on Ant's door. Knock, knock, knock. And Ant opened up, and Grasshopper said, "Oh, Ant, I need help. I need help. I don't have a place to stay. I don't have any food to eat, and I don't have anything to keep me warm. Oh, I need help. Oh, I need help." Well, Ant was touched, and he looked at Grasshopper, smiled a very nice smile, and this time Ant sang, "I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. Hey!" Well, Grasshopper turned away, and Ant said, "Oh, come back." He said, "I was just kidding." He said, "I knew you weren't going to get ready, so I gathered some extra food and made some extra warm clothes just for you. You could spend the winter with me, but you need to remember that when spring comes, the weather will be nice, but winter is going to come again, and you need to be ready." And Grasshopper agreed. And so Ant and Grasshopper spent the winter together, enjoying the time. And finally, spring came, and they both went back out. And when they did, Grasshopper was very different. Yes, he still did play, because there was always time to play. But he also made sure that he worked and got ready for winter, because he knew that winter was going to come again soon, and this time he really did care. And that is the end. Now, on to our last few stories about November. Now, in November, not only are we getting ready for winter, not only does the clocks change and our days get shorter, it is also time for Thanksgiving. Now, no matter what you do, there are food involved. And certainly when the holidays come, and we'll be doing a video about that soon, when the holidays season comes, there's lots of food and lots of things to eat. And Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday because it's lots and lots and lots of food. Oh boy, do I like to eat some stuff. I like to eat lots of stuff. I do. And our last two stories are going to be about food. Our very first one is a story of Anansi the Spider. Now, Anansi, if you've been following me, and I hope you have, because I am Big Joe the Storyteller, and you might have heard stories from me before. You know that I tell stories with Anansi the Spider because he is a trickster. And he's very sneaky, very tricky, and very greedy. He is very greedy indeed. Yep. And he has a story about food. This is a story called Anansi the Spider and the Magic Food. Once upon a time, Anansi lived in a village, and they didn't have much to eat. They didn't have much money. They weren't able to gather a lot of food. And during the holidays, during all the big celebrations, they didn't have much to eat. And every day, they ate the same thing. They had mush. Now, mush is like oatmeal, only mushier. And for breakfast, they had mush. And for lunch, they had mush. And for dinner, what do you think they had? That's right, mush. And every day they had a great big cooking pot in the middle of the village, and they would boil up the mush. And when the smoke would come off the top of the pot, they would know that the mush was ready, and they would take their bowls, go to the middle, scoop it into their bowl, and eat their mush. Now, mush doesn't have a great flavor, doesn't have a great taste. It's not good to eat, but that's what they ate all the time. Even when they had their big holiday celebrations, they just had mush. Well, one day Anansi was sitting there eating his mush, and he was thinking about lots of food to eat. Oh, he's thinking about all good things to eat, but he was just eating that mush. And all of a sudden, he looked off in the distance, and he saw smoke coming out of the trees. And Anansi said, I wonder what's over there. And so Anansi went through the jungle, through the trees, until he came across some bushes. And he pulled apart the bushes, and that's when he saw it. There was another village, another cooking pot, and smoke coming out of the top of it. But instead of spiders, you know what they were? Rice. Little grains of rice. And the rice were walking and talking and dancing and playing. And Anansi went, wow! And the rice said, oh, hello, Anansi. And Anansi said, hello, magic food. And the rice said, how would you like us cooked? Would you like us boiled? Would you like us baked? Would you like us fried? Because fried rice is pretty tasty. And Anansi said, oh man, I don't care how you cook yourselves. Just do it. Just do it. And they said, okay. And they started jumping in the pot. Sploosh, 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 sploosh. And they boiled themselves out. Well, Anansi was very hungry. And he went over to the cooking pot to get some of that rice. But when he got there, he looked off in the distance and there was more smoke. And Anansi said, ooh, what's that over there? And they said, oh, that's a village with more food. And Anansi said, ooh, more food. I should go over there. And they said, no, Anansi, stay here. You can have as much rice as you want to eat all the time. Stay here, Anansi. Don't be greedy. Now, as I told you, Anansi was very greedy. And when you're greedy, that means you always want more. And when you get more, you want more. And when you get more, you want even more. And he always wanted more. And so Anansi said goodbye to the rice without even eating a single grain of rice. And he headed off into the jungle. He went through the bushes, through the trees, until he came across a big set of bushes. And he pulled apart the bushes and that's when he saw there was another village, another cooking pot, and smoke coming out of the top. But instead of rice, you know what they were? Beans. Big, fat, juicy, red beans. And the beans are walking and talking and dancing and playing. And Anansi went, whoa! And the beans said, oh, hello, Anansi. And Anansi said, hey, hello, magic food. And the bean said, how would you like us cooked? Would you like us fried? Would you like us boiled? Would you like us baked? Because baked beans are pretty tasty. He said, I don't care how you cook yourselves. Just do it. Just do it. And they said, okay. And they started jumping in the pot. Sploosh, sploosh, sploosh. And they boiled themselves up. Now Anansi was very, very hungry. He was so hungry. And he went over to the cooking pot to get some of those beans. But then he looked off in the distance. And you know what he saw? More smoke. There was smoke coming out of the trees. And Anansi said, ooh, what's that over there? And they said, oh, that's a village with more food. He said, ooh, more food. I should go over there. And they said, no, Anansi, stay here. You can have as many beans as you want to eat. Stay here, Anansi. Don't be greedy. But Anansi was very greedy. And if there was more food, man, he wanted to have it. And so he said goodbye to the beans without even eating a single one. And he ran off through the jungle, through the trees, until he came across some bushes. And he pulled apart the bushes and there was another village, another cooking pot, and smoke coming out of the top. But instead of rice or instead of beans, you know what there were? Potatoes. Big, yummy, juicy potatoes. And the potatoes are walking and talking and dancing and playing. And Anansi went, wow! And the potato said, oh, hello, Anansi. And Anansi said, hey, hello, magic food. And the potato said, how would you like us cooked? Would you like us boiled? Would you like us baked? Would you like us fried? Because French fries are really cool. He said, oh, I don't care how you cook yourselves. Just do it, please. Oh, please, oh, please. And they said, okay. And they started jumping in the pot. Sploosh, sploosh, sploosh. And they boiled themselves up. Well, Anansi was so hungry, he was practically drooling. And he went over to the cooking pot to get some of those potatoes. But he looked off in the distance. You know what he saw? That's right. You all know. More smoke. And Anansi said, ooh, what's that over there? And they said, oh, that's a village with more food. He said, ooh, more food. I should go over there. And they said, no, Anansi, stay here. You can have as many potatoes as you want to eat forever. Stay here, Anansi. Don't be greedy. But Anansi was very greedy. If there was more food, man, oh man, he wanted to have it. And so he said goodbye to potatoes without even eating a single one. And he ran off through the jungle, through the trees, until he came across some bushes. And he pulled apart the bushes and that's when he saw it. There was another village, another cooking pot, and smoke come out of the top. But instead of rice or instead of beans or instead of potatoes, you know what there were? Spiders. Anansi was back in his very own village. And he looked inside the cooking pot, and sure enough, it was full of mush. Well, Anansi ran through the jungle as fast as he could to try to find the villagers of the magic food, but he could never find them again. And from that day on, Anansi had to eat his mush for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and all the holidays. And he was very, very sad because he was very, very greedy. And that is the end. All right. Now, we have one more story for you, and this story is about Thanksgiving. Now, there are many ways you can go about stories about Thanksgiving, but I'm going to tell you a story about the food of Thanksgiving, because no matter what, my favorite part of Thanksgiving is the food, as I told you. And I'm going to tell you our last story is called Tricky Rolls Home. Now, this is another trickster that I work with. His name is Tricky. Yep. Hey, Big Joe, can I tell the story? No. Can I tell the story? No. We have to get through our last story so we can send the friends on their way. So I have to tell the story. You can't tell the story. Why? Well, you're too slow. You're a turtle. It'll take too long. It won't. It will. Can I try? All right, fine. You want to try? Go right ahead. Once upon a time, there. What? See, it's going to take forever. Okay, I'll tell the story. You can be in the story. Okay, I'll be in the story. Sure. This is a story called Tricky Rolls Home. Yep. Well, once upon a time, Tricky the turtle was in his house, and he got a call from his brother. And his brother said, Tricky, I want you to come to my house tomorrow for a Thanksgiving feast. Oh, it's going to be great. We're going to have turkey and stuffing. We're going to have mashed potatoes and gravy. We're going to have corn on the cob with butter. We're going to have crescent rolls. We're going to have cranberry sauce. We're going to have macaroni and cheese. We're going to have apple pie, pumpkin pie, blueberry pie, sweet potato pie. It's going to be great. And Tricky said, I'll be there. And Tricky was very excited and looking forward to a great big feast. Oh boy, was he ever. In fact, he was looking forward to it so much he decided he wasn't going to eat the whole entire day. So that way he could be extra hungry when he went to his brother's house. Well, finally, the next day came. And when the next day came, Tricky was very excited. He got himself ready and headed out to go see his brother. He went down the road, thinking about all the food. When out came Wolf. Hey, everybody. And Wolf looked at Tricky and said, well, look what we have here. A nice turtle for my lunch. I am going to eat you up. Now, Tricky was in trouble. He didn't know what to do. And he knew he couldn't get away because Wolf was too fast. He knew he couldn't hide because Wolf could find him. But he knew that Wolf was strong. He knew that Wolf was fast, but he also knew that Wolf was not very smart. And so he looked at Wolf and he said, oh, Wolf, you don't want to eat me? And Wolf said, yes, I do. He said, no, you don't. He said, look at me. I'm just skinny and weak. I haven't eaten anything in a long time. He said, oh, I'm so skinny and weak, but I'm going to my brother's house for a Thanksgiving feast. And when I do, I'm going to eat lots and lots of food. And when I come back later on, I'm going to be nice and plump and fat. Maybe you could eat me then, because after all, eating a fat turtle would be much better than eating a skinny one. Wolf thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And he said, yeah, you're right. All right. I do want to eat a nice fat turtle. He said, all right, I will wait right here. And later on, when you come back, I'm going to eat you up. He said, no problem. And so Tricky went down the road. And he thought to himself, that Wolf isn't very smart. He's going to be waiting there forever because I'm never, ever going home by that dirt road again. Well, he went down the road and he got to his brother's house. And when he got there, his brother said, Tricky, oh, come in. Oh, it's so good to see you. Oh, we're going to have a wonderful time. We're going to have a wonderful meal. And indeed they did. They had lots and lots of food. They had turkey and stuffing, mashed potatoes and gravy, cranberry sauce, corn on the cob with butter, some crescent rolls, macaroni and cheese. It makes me hungry just thinking about this. Oh boy. They had apple pie and pumpkin pie, blueberry pie and sweet potato pie. And they ate till Tricky's belly got big and fat. Look at that big fat belly. Look at that big fat belly right there. It's my big fat tummy. I know. I got a big tummy. Yep, I do. Well, he was stuffed. Oh boy, was he ever. And he was very happy. He thanked his brother for a wonderful time, said goodbye and headed off for home. Now, as he was going home, he was thinking about all the food, all the good stuff that he ate. But he wasn't thinking about the wolf. And if he was thinking about the wolf, he would remember that wolf was waiting for him on the side of the road. But he wasn't thinking about that at all. And as he was going down the road, Wolf came out and Wolf said, "Well, hello, lunch." He said, "Oh, look at you. Nice and plump and fat. Good enough to eat. And that's good, because I'm going to eat you up." And Tricky smacked himself in the knee and said, "Oh, why didn't I remember that, Wolf? Oh, why?" Well, they call him Tricky, of course, because he loves to play tricks. And after a few seconds of very smart thinking, he came up with something good. He said, "Okay, Wolf, you can eat me up." Wolf said, "Really? I could? All right." And he said, wait. Before you do, could you do one last favor for me?" And Wolf said, "What is it?" He said, "Could you take me to the top of the hill so I could look down at the valley one last time before you eat me up?" And Wolf said, "Fine, fine, fine." He put Tricky on his back. He said, "Don't try anything funny." Tricky said, "No problem." And so Wolf went up the hill. Now, Wolf was very tired from waiting all day to eat Tricky up, and Tricky was extra heavy from eating all that food. So it took him a long time to get him to the top of the hill. And by the time he did, Wolf was out of breath. He said, all right. You go to look down at that valley. You look down at the valley, and then I'm going to eat you up." And Tricky said, "No problem." So from the top of the hill, Tricky looked down at the valley, and he said, "Oh, Wolf, look at that valley. It's so beautiful. When I was a little turtle, we would go down there all the time. We would play in the grass. We would swim in the water. We would climb on the rocks. And every once in a while, we would come up here and play roly-poly turtle." Wolf said, "Roly-poly turtle, what's that?" He said, "Oh, you've never played roly-poly turtle?" He said, "No, how do you play?" He said, "Oh, it's very easy." He said, "First, you go to the edge of the hill, like this." Tricky went to the edge of the hill. He said, "And then you pull yourself into your shell, like this." And Tricky pulled himself into his shell. Yep. He said, "And then you tip yourself over and you roll down the hill, like this." And he tipped himself over and started to roll down the hill. He rolled and he rolled and he rolled. And Wolf said, "Hey, that's pretty good. Hey, he's getting away." And indeed he was. He rolled down the hill and Wolf chased after him. He ran and he ran and he ran and he ran, but Wolf could hardly keep up. He was so tired. And Tricky rolled and rolled and rolled and finally got to his house. And he got inside and locked the door tight. And by the time Wolf got down to the bottom, Tricky was already safe and sound at home. And Wolf banged on his door and he said, "Hey, you tricked me." And Tricky said, "Yep, I certainly did." He said, "Hey, Wolf, maybe next time you won't try to eat fast food." Get it? Fast food because I rolled down the hill. That wasn't funny. It's funny. It's not funny. It's funny. It's a little funny. All right, fine. Well, Wolf went home angry and upset, but Tricky was very happy because even though he was a little bit dizzy from all that rolling, he had a belly full of Thanksgiving dinner, and he tricked that wolf by rolling all the way home. And that is the end. And I want to thank you for joining me for all these stories about November. And I hope you have a wonderful November month. And I hope you all have a wonderful, happy day. Thanks, and have a great day.